15 celebrities who were once down and out before hitting the big time. 15. Rough start. Phil McGraw, but you will know him better as Dr. Phil, was once living in a car with his dad. He was just 12 years old at the time, and his father was interning as a psychologist. Phil worked very hard though and just knew that wouldn't be his life forever. He eventually got his PhD and joined his father's practice. And of course, it was thanks to Oprah that he achieved his fame he's familiar with today. 14. Tough time. Harry Houdini wasn't always a happy kid, and he ran away from home when he was very young. He was born in Hungary and his family moved to New York City. He was very close to his mother and they had very little money in NYC. He and his several brothers and sister lived in a boarding house, and although he never slept on the street, Houdini begged a lot to get coins to give to his mother. Fortunately, it wasn't long before he could give that up and earn his keep. 13. Your life, your choice. You might have found yourself in a similar situation to Jennifer Lopez, where you know exactly what you want to do with your life, but your parents have other ideas. J-Lo knew from a young age she wanted to be a dancer. Her mother wasn't happy, and at the age of 18, she was homeless, crashing wherever she could, including on a cot in a dance studio. It took her just 12 months to get her break, and just look at her now. 12. Stay true to yourself. You wouldn't think someone like the late Steve Jobs could have ever been without a home, but he was. During his college years, he would crash on the floor at his friends' places and even exchanged Coke bottles for a tiny bit of money. He would walk 7 miles every Sunday just to get a decent meal at the Hare Krishna temple. He really was an inspiration. 11. It does get better. Hilary Swank is a great example of how it's possible to pick yourself up from the lowest point in your life and totally turn it around. She's now worth around $40 million, so it might surprise you to know that in the early 90s, her and her mom used to sleep in the car. Her mom had faith in her and they moved to LA before Hilary began her incredible acting career. 10. Do what you have to do. And that's exactly what Daniel Craig did before he hit the big time. At one point in his life, he was sleeping on park benches and waiting tables. His acting career wasn't an overnight success, and he auditioned for several drama schools and was rejected, until he was accepted at Guildhall School of Music and Drama. 9. The wheel does turn. Jewel is no stranger to tough times, and before her music career took off, she was homeless for roughly a month. She was working a regular job when her boss tried to sleep with her. She refused and he fired her without pay. She was kicked out of her apartment and had to live in her car. Due to bad kidneys, she got really sick and almost died during that time. She made the decision to return to singing, which ultimately saved her life. 8. Finger licking good. Can you imagine a world without KFC? I certainly can't. Hard to imagine that the founder of this chain lived out of his car for a very, very long time. It took him and his wife a long time to convince people to sell his delicious chicken recipe, but the sacrifice certainly paid off. Colonel Sanders' recipe is now sold in 118 countries, with almost 20,000 KFC stores in total. 7. Survivor. Charlie Chaplin had a very tough life as a young teen. His mother Hannah landed up in a mental asylum after his father drank himself to death. At the age of 14, with a younger brother to look after, Chaplin had to survive on handouts and the kindness of others. Chaplin was very close to his mother and attributed his success to her. 6. Everything will be okay. Just ask Drew Carey, who has a net worth of around $165 million. At one stage of his life, he was homeless in Las Vegas. In order to try and get a bit of money, he was selling plasma for $40 and would scrape spare change together to buy boxed mac and cheese. 5. Lifestyles of the rich and the famous. Of all our featured celebrities, Steve Harvey probably roughed it the longest. He lived out of his 1976 Ford Tempo for 3 years. When he began his comedy career in the early 80s, a few gigs unexpectedly fell through, which resulted in him having only his car to live in. He used to clean himself at gas stations or at swimming pool showers, until his big break came when he was asked to appear in Showtime at the Apollo. 4. A long time ago. Shania Twain was also homeless. Her and her mom, along with her siblings, all stayed in a shelter at one point. When she was growing up, her family were exceptionally poor. and Shania chopped wood and learned to hunt to provide for them. She never told anybody about their situation, fearing they would split their family up. She took singing lessons after graduating and used to clean the instructor's house in exchange for the lessons. She's definitely someone you can look up to. 3. Can't keep him down. Sylvester Stallone also went through very rocky times, where at one stage in his life he sold his own dog for $50. He was kicked out of his apartment and was homeless for a few days. He managed to make a little money by being featured in a soft porn movie, and later did a bit of erotic work on stage. He says he was desperate. Good news though about his dog. He bought his dog back again when he had the money and ended up paying $3,000 for him. 2. Free spirit. Those were words used to describe Sam Worthington, who was homeless for a while and an expert couch surfer. He's now worth around $12 million and has starred in some amazing movies. At the time when he auditioned for Avatar, he was sleeping in his car, but now lives in his piece of paradise in Hawaii. 1. Try and try again. Kind of strange to think of a financial guru once being very, very poor. Suze Orman is now worth around $25 million, but back in the early 1970s, for 4 months she lived out of her van. She dropped out of college, borrowed money to buy that van, and waited tables for 4 months to survive. Her lucky break came when one of her customers tipped her $2,000 and gave her instructions on how to go about investing it. Have you ever gone through a rough time like these celebs and made your way out of it successfully? Share your experience with us in the comments below and subscribe to our channel for more interesting videos just like this. Thanks for watching.